Hello, guys. I think we are live. Let's see if anyone is gonna be here tonight with me. The first viewer here, please tell me if my sound is okay or not. Today, I'm gonna do a reaction about a video made by the YouTuber, the lawyer. No, what's the name of this guy? Sorry, guys, I'm so lost. His name is Lawyer You Know, the Lawyer You Know. Sorry for the lapsus. This is me, as usual. So it's 1 minute here. I don't have anyone. Oh, there's one viewer. Please let me know who is there and let me know if my sound is okay. Anyways, I think this is a very interesting period of the case because everyone is talking. Prosecution, the jurors, the defense. Ooh, the boss is here. What's up? My favorite and my only moderator, Farmer. Actually, how are you, Farmer? I'm gonna drop the link here. You wanna call later? I wanna do a reaction, and the reaction is about a video made by the YouTuber, the Lawyer You Know, and it is about the juror, that just went out to give her testimony. So no more protocol. Let's present. Let's start with this. Thank you guys for being here with me. I'm gonna just present the screen as usual. I'm kind of slow, but it's coming soon. So let's start with this.
Which parts of the trial were most important. And for someone like myself that was not in the courtroom, we had a lot of people on our podcast that some aired, some didn't air, that were in the courtroom, that were on both sides of this. I know a lot of the ones that ended up airing were on the side that they felt like there just wasn't enough, or there were some issues in this case. They didn't think that Richard Allen was legally guilty. Some even borderline on the maybe Richard Allen actually is innocent. I don't think that's where this podcast landed. One of the hosts is a journalist, one is a lawyer. But we are going to listen for the information here that
Of course, he's talking about the murder shit. We know that.
we can get from one of the jurors. And right off the bat, they get into part of the jury selection process. And this juror said that she likes true crime, is not an avid watcher or listener, but would basically catch the documentaries at night once in a while. I found that to be interesting, but she didn't know a lot specifically about this case. And I found it really interesting that the juror questionnaires had information about Odinism on it. And that led this juror to think there was going to be more about Odinism in the trial, which I found that to be interesting for a lot of reasons. Like, if you're going to ask Odinism questions, which I can understand why the defense would wanted to get in there because they were still trying to get it in a trial, even have to say it or argue it, but it was in jurors' minds a little bit that when you showed or talked about the crime scene, maybe if they knew anything about Odinism, or if they were thinking about Odinism or had it on the line, it's a situation where people say Murder Sheet is notorious for striking. Well, we're gonna make it our own here and discuss as much as we possibly can and add to it as much as we can, just playing a couple clips from it. I'll talk to them if they want to talk about it. It's no big deal. And if it's not monetized, that's fine too. Which we can deal with all that as it goes. So it was interesting that Odinism was even on the questionnaire from my perspective.
So this is very interesting. He's talking that he's telling us that the juror, she was very interested in Odinism. And the thing is, we know that the defense, they were not allowed to talk about Odinism. during the process. So imagine if the defense was allowed to talk about that during the trial. So this is huge, in my opinion. So I think the defense, they had their hands tied up. They didn't have the tools to represent their client as they were supposed to. But anyways, it is what it is. This is a very interesting information. It talks a lot about the way the juror was thinking at that moment of the process. Hello, Matahari. Thank you for being here. I'm happy you're here listening to us.
She talked a little bit about how the prosecutor in jury selection made her feel more at ease than the defense attorneys. It felt like more of an interrogation with the defense attorneys. She liked the demeanor of the prosecutors generally better than the defense attorneys. She felt like the defense attorney specifically was, I don't know if condescending is the right word, but more like a little harsher, I think. And
I think condescending was the right word. She said that she found Rosie a little bit condescending.
the prosecutor was more like getting on their level, making the process, because they were all nervous. It was all difficult. And the prosecutor kind of made it a process that was easier for them to kind of digest and deal with it. I did notice this with this juror, that she was talking and making comments that she had watched or listened to this podcast, this Murder Sheet podcast. And then with more context after the trial, she went back, she did some research. She was interested in what was going on online. And she said maybe she even dove a little too deep into Reddit. But she really appreciated the work that this podcast did. She thought they did a really good job. And she appreciated the work they did on the case. And she does talk about some misinformation that was out there from people not in the courtroom, from people saying things that just didn't happen. And so we'll get to some of that when we discuss it. Let's see what else we got here. She talked a little bit about how maybe Richard Allen had weird eyes or something, was looking at some of the jurors. And the podcaster said that, yeah, even when he looked in the gallery, sometimes it was creepy. She said that the juror said she tried not to kind of make eye contact for a long time with Richard Allen. She said some of the other jurors would make eye contact with him until he stopped making eye contact with her, or with them, I should say. She said she did not partake in that, but that regardless of what his eyes were like, she did not think that had anything to do with his guilt or innocence, which is good in my opinion. Let's see what else. She said she brought in a Polaroid camera, which I thought was interesting. You're not supposed to, obviously, or allowed to bring in cameras, take pictures, things like that. But she said she thought she'd be able to bring a Polaroid in because you can't post it online. And that was confiscated, so she wasn't able to bring that in every day. I thought that was interesting. She said she loved the bailiffs, not unusual. They talked about the process of being sequestered and groceries being delivered and how they, logistically what it was like for them to kind of set up and try to get meals together. They asked her specifically, was she aware of the media attention, which is going to be one of the first clips I want to play here, of her discussing what the media attention is like, and whether or not she knew about it. So let's take a listen.
At first was every other night we would go out to dinner and then eat in every other. And the places we would go for dinners, we did Longhorn. Let me think. There's a place around there called Hayes River, something like that. It's like a public house. I remember more of the lunches for some reason. The lunches were just like McAllister's. There was that Stonehouse restaurant, Panera, all that stuff. So pretty just generic cheddar.
Yeah, I was wondering, during the trial, were you aware of the level of media attention this was receiving?
Yes and no. They kind of expressed that when we were like sequestered at the beginning, just that, there's a lot of like coverage about it. But one day, I guess to answer your question fully, they downplayed it a lot. I think they didn't want us to like worry too much, but like the security detail and all of that, I'm like, this seems just crazy. We couldn't even go on the elevators to the bottom floor without, you know, cops with us. We couldn't have anyone else in the elevator with us. We couldn't talk to anyone else. It was very serious. But on the way home from the courthouse one day, we all of a sudden started going really, really fast. Like I'm talking like 90 miles per hour. And we're like, what the heck? And we just didn't know what happened. Like they don't tell us really anything. You can just tell that there's like a stressful something going on. And afterwards, they end up telling us, this was like, because it wasn't long before the end of the trial, but they told us at the end that it was some person and Jason and Jeremy, our bailiffs, they didn't have, what do you call it, like radios to like talk back and forth. They didn't know why we were going that fast at the time. They just go however fast the cop in front of them goes, and they were speeding, so they're following them. Well, what happened was they saw someone next to us. They said they were there. One of the cops saw that someone was trying to take pictures into our van. So they pulled that person over and took her phone and took it to Judge Goal. So she's on the side of the highway. They keep her there, take her phone to Judge Goal. Judge Goal looks through it, finds that she was just, she goes to school at IU and had just like been traveling through Delphi and saw, you know, our vans and all the cops. Was like, what is that? And then like looked it up and saw what it was and was just telling her friends, but she didn't have like videos of us or anything.
So just to give you an idea, like jurors in every situation are a little bit different. When you're sequestered, first off, I think most jurors, you know, an antenna will go up that's probably more serious, something going on. When you have this type of security detail, cops going everywhere to lunch and dinner with you, driving you places, things like this happening, from my perspective, you know, it's a big deal, right? And as a juror who maybe has never done this before, I think she says the foreman had been on a juror before. From my perspective, it is a situation where they're going to know that it's serious. It's a situation where when officers are going to do something like this, like it's a pretty jarring thing for you to see. I wonder how they knew that the cell phone was confiscated and given to Judge Goal. I don't know how they would have known something like that. If I was an attorney, I probably wouldn't want them to know that. I would just want them to know the situation was handled, basically. But you know, that heightened sense of what's going on. I mean, maybe there is outside public pressure, but if you think about it, you don't know which side is necessarily applying the pressure potentially if you're a juror on the case. But either way, she was just giving that, I think, as an example of an indication as to why she kind of understood this case is a big deal, or there is a lot of attention on this case.
It should be very stressful for the jurors. I try to put myself in the shoes of a juror. Should be really, really difficult. I'm just thinking about my dog. When I go to work every day, it's like 8-9 hours at work without her, and I know she's depressed. So I imagine 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks, my dog alone. Sorry, I'm just thinking about her. It should be really hard. So people with kids, with family issues, with other responsibilities. So you are responsible for the fate or the future of this guy, Richard Allen, and you're thinking about your family. You want to come back to your house as soon as possible. There's a conflict there that it's really hard. Sorry for that lapsus here, but I wanted to talk about it.
Then, okay, so we're going to listen here to a couple minutes now as she kind of describes what she thinks of Judge Goal, what she thinks of the prosecutors, and what she thinks of the defense attorneys.
We have our friend Derek Farmer. How are you, Farmer?
Hey. How you doing tonight, Cryptex? I wasn't really planning on coming on live, but I'm thrilled to see that you are, and I'm a little a little miffed. I guess I don't know who this guy is. So I was just kind of making coffee. As you all may know, I don't use a microwave oven anymore because it does lead into easier mind control from the government. So I have to boil my water first. So it took a while. Not sure who this guy is, but I'm listening and I'm soaking it all in. So Cryptex, you go ahead.
Yeah, great YouTuber. His name, I don't know what's his name again, but the name of his channel is The Lawyer You Know. So I think he's a lawyer, or he was a lawyer. I think he's a lawyer. And his YouTube channel is great. So he's talking about the interview that the murder sheet made to the juror after the process. So
Right.
just trying to react to his video, and we can talk about it. So I'm gonna play it. You can raise your hand when you wanna when you wanna talk, or put a comment in the chat, and I'm gonna stop the video, and we can go like that if you want.
I've never tried it. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So I'm gonna play it again.
And what's always interesting to me is every juror, I mean, they should and they better, loves the judge, thinks the world of the judge. And that's no different here. So no surprises here, regardless of what some people said. And I think even the podcaster said, you know, they were a little annoyed with Judge Gold because Judge Gold wasn't giving the media everything they felt like they were entitled to. So regardless of that,
it seems that everybody was annoyed with Judge Gold, even the jurors. So that's interesting.
From a juror's perspective, they almost always love the judge. There's no difference here. Number two is how she feels about the attorneys. And one of the most common thing, and I talked to another juror in the Chad Daybell case, and they told me that they felt the same way, that like the prosecutors were really organized and the defense felt like they were unorganized. And, they were told that after trial, Jamie said. Okay, I might have missed that. Jamie said that she was told that after trial. That makes more sense. So, and she's going to echo that the prosecutors were way more organized. The defense attorneys were way more unorganized. So we'll take a listen to a little bit of that here.
What do you think about that, Farmer?
That she thought the defense was unorganized and the prosecution was organized?
Yeah.
I think that sounds like the supervisor saying that management is doing an effective job and the hourly workers suck. I mean, to me, it just sounds like just based on that, and I don't know, but it just sounds like she's patting the what she would consider to be the good side on the back and kicking the what she would consider to be the bad side in the ass.
Yeah, good point. Or I don't know, man.
But I mean, as far as like, does that set a tone for the entire trial? Then is she, is that going to show then how she's going to, as she's moving forward? I mean, we know that, after that leak came out, how she reacted to that, and I think that was setting a contentious tone for the trial going forward. Certainly from there. But go ahead with the video.
Yeah, she used the word organization. So that the defense the prosecution seemed to be more organized than the prosecution. I wonder if she wanted to say rather preparation. But it feels like to me it's like she's saying that the prosecution was more prepared. I don't know. Let's see. Let's continue with the video and let's see what's coming.
I'm sure like everything goes the way it's supposed to as well. We would do like a cookout. Our hotel had like grills outside, so Jason would grill sometimes, or we would like cater Subway or pizza, things like that.
Wow, that's okay. So that, I mean, I was always I'm like, what is their activity? So I think that's, I think that's neat. I'm going to ask you about some of the different parties in the case and kind of what your impressions and what maybe sort of what you got the sense of the group's impressions of them were. And I guess that starting off on would be the one who probably kind of addressed you guys directly the most. And that's Judge Gull.
I think that she is a very impressive woman. I don't know, ever since I mean, and the way you look at a judge, at least to me, I was just like, wow, like she must be really like educated and just, and I love seeing women in like a high role. So I thought that was really cool from the beginning. And then from my experience from the trial, once I heard the podcast, like I totally get where you guys are coming from like a media standpoint of wanting to, because I feel the same way. Like I'm so glad that you guys were able to be there the amount of times you were and get the correct message of what actually happened in court through. So I totally get your side, but as a juror, I didn't, experience any of that. And I just thought and think that she just like a boss, like, and did a really good job.
I do think it's really interesting too to like read the comments and see people talking as we're listening. And like when there's a judge, there's been judges people love in the chat and judges people hate. I will just tell you, whether I love or hate a judge, it's not a lot of judges I hate, but whether I think a judge is awesome and fair or like one of the judges I don't love trying cases in front of, the sentiment is almost always the same with the jurors. And we can't blame the jurors for liking the judge. Everybody's respectful to the judge. All the lawyers should act in court like they like the judge and they should be respectful to the judge. Jurors usually pick up on that. The judges give the jurors instructions. We always say, it's not just because the lawyers are going to tell you, the judge is going to tell you what the law is. And it's all very respectful. And that's how it works and how it's supposed to be. So every juror in almost every trial really likes the judge, and they really should.
Command.
So far, any comment, Farmer? She said that the judge's goal was very impressive. I think we can agree with that. She's impressive, imponent, like a powerful.
Yeah, I think the judge had a huge presence in this case. I don't know that they always do. You can look at other murder cases. Judge Lancito from the O.J. Simpson trial would pop into my head. At first, for judges that have taken a higher profile in the media, I find it a bit ironic. She wouldn't allow any cameras in the courtroom, but herself, she didn't mind sort of putting herself out there, and letting the media sort of form the personal narrative of her life that was allowed to happen. And without that media in the courtroom, I mean, I defended that decision originally that she made, not doing that based on the fact that, in the old days, we had journalists in every courtroom and sketch artists that could properly sketch out the courtroom in some clarity. But that appears to not be the case anymore. And when YouTube web sleuths are giving out more pertinent and better information than mainstream reporters, which is what I'm finding in a lot of these cases, I think it's a pretty damn sad day. I mean, they're the ones on payroll. So that's what I think about it. Go ahead.
Yeah, let's continue with this. I agree with you, Farmer.
Sure.
And,
I get a little sidetracked. Sorry about that. How
I
you doing,
agree.
Shay Watson?
Yeah, Shay is great. Hey, Shay, by the way, I'm waiting for your update about the squad.
And a room.
Yes. And I think we tried to stress on the show that while we still are certainly salty to a certain degree about the media stuff, I think she certainly guided the case legally throughout a lot of minefields throughout the whole process. And I was impressed with that. And also she was so nice. Like you could tell when she was addressing you guys, like she was so warm and kind of,
oh my God,
it was really nice. And like, I was curious, you kind of noticed that too.
Yeah. And after the trial, she always debriefed the jury. So we got to spend some time with her and we're allowed to ask her any questions we want to. We just got to talk to her and actually spend normal time with her that's not just, in court. So that was really cool too.
What was she like during that?
Very chill, like not at all as I was expecting. She's very chill and cool and relaxed and just go with the flow and not at all like you see her as a judge.
And then I'm curious, what were your impressions of the three attorneys from the prosecution? So I guess we can start off with McClelland. We talked a bit about him during voir dire, but during trial.
I was very, very impressed with McClelland. I think he did a really, really good job. And that's off of someone that, knows nothing about trials to this point. So, but knowing nothing, I think and I guess that's what really matters because I was a juror. But like, I think I kind of touched on that he just made me feel comfortable. Very professional. I think that was something that kind of lacked on the other side. Like, I felt that he always kind of had a plan, was always thoroughly prepared. Just like a high level professional. I don't know. Just kind of what you'd expect from a lawyer.
Right.
So that is a really, really common definition and sentiment of what jurors think for the lawyers that is on the side that they vote for. Like, I can't tell you how many times it's like the organization, the thoroughness, the way things are put together just seemed like your witnesses had more information. They were better prepared. The other side seemed unorganized. I wasn't really understanding what they were trying to get at. She did mention at another point that like the technology woes for the prosecution, was maybe not great. And they maybe thought like, oh, that's not very organized that they're having these technology issues, which is why lawyers usually freak out and hate having technology issues during trial. That's why before trial, we're usually able to go to the courtroom, test out all of our technology, see how it works, have courtroom personnel there to help us with anything that might be an issue. I like to put up all my exhibits, anything I'm going to use in opening, anything I may use in jury selection, closing, whenever it is. Before I do that, I like to put it all up on the screen, make sure it works appropriately, because you hate to have this feeling, especially if you're the side that they think's really organized. Now you do something that makes them think you're less organized. It can affect the case. That wasn't the ultimate issue. It wasn't the reason that she voted one way or the other, but it just.
So there's a contradiction here, Farmer.
Go ahead.
Remember that during the opening statements of the prosecution, they had technical issues with the TV at the court room. They were not able to turn on the screen, something like that. Something happened. And I don't know if you remember the last show I did with Jeff Ikstanowski, and he had a great point. Ignatowski, yeah. It's hard to say to tell his family name. He said that could be something that the prosecution did on purpose. Why? Because remember that during the investigation, there were a lot of technical issues. They had interviews that were accidentally lost. Brad Holder and Odinism guys, the Marathon gas station, that was the FBI, but there were a lot of technical issues during the investigation. And maybe when they were doing the opening statements, they do it on purpose to influence the jurors, like trying to say, technical issues, that happens every time. It's something normal. So you know what I mean? That was really fishy and very smart from the prosecution. They were trying to clean the accidental loss of the interviews, the 70 hours interviews that were lost by doing that during the first day of the process. Like, we're gonna present you guys our case, but sorry, our screen is not working. You know what I mean? It's fishy.
Yeah, I guess I'm just not I'm not cynical enough to understand that move. I'm not I guess that to me, when you have a problem like that and you're not able to present some of the evidence that you said you're going to, then at some point you either have to did they ever revisit that? Did they ever display that stuff properly, or was it just gone forever? Because it just falls in line with the good side, if you will, being, the side that's trying to stop these murderers continuously losing evidence. It's really frustrating.
Yeah, 100%. I don't
so
think
I mean, I don't know if that was an intentional move to not have to present that evidence because they felt like possibly it helped out the defense. That's pretty shitty. They should be there to get to the truth, not to create a narrative, in my opinion. And if they did that on purpose, I think it should be sanctioned by somehow sanctioned by the legal system as such. Go ahead.
No one is going to be able to prove it.
I
but-
agree. The last 24, a $2.5 million trial in podunk-ass Indiana, where the dollar stretches much farther anyways, let's face it.
Especially
shouldn't have any technical issues. They should have had brand new equipment and a presenter there to take care. They should have had a producer.
Especially when you had like 2 years to prepare your case. Everything has to be perfect. That's why I think maybe it was intentional. And anyways, they
that
were
makes me really mad. That is right.
They were able to present the evidence after. It's just it was a move to say, hey, man, technical issues, technology fails from time to time. That's what happened during the investigation, guys. So you can understand. To me that makes sense. They were maybe trying to influence the jurors in that sense, and that's okay. They were smart, and
I guess so. But to me, it seems like a dirty trick. So I mean, I just see like if the evidence is there and they have it lined up to play, just play the damn evidence. And if you're doing something to obfuscate what you put together yourself, well, that just screams that what you put together indicates the defense may have some more defense than what you want them to have. Go ahead.
Let's go with the video.
That's what happens in the minds of the juries when you start to believe one side and go with one side throughout a trial, which is how trials work. You start to think, yeah, they're so organized. I trust them more. I believe them more. Not that you think one side is lying, but usually this is the sentiment a juror will echo for the lawyer whose side they vote for.
And then I guess the next one would be Stacey Diener on the prosecution side.
I really like Stacey Diener. Well, and something for me, I really like fashion, so it was really cool for me to look at everyone's outfits every day, and that was like something really cool about being in the courthouse for some reason. But she had the best outfits for sure. That was something I really liked about Stacey Diener.
What?
The presence is important in every aspect of this world, man. The YouTube podcaster, sometimes if you're handsome, if you have a good outfit, that's gonna influence the audience, In this case, she's saying she was impressed in the way the prosecution lawyer was dressing every day, very elegant, changing her outfit every day. So that's part of the psychology. It's not only the evidence, there are a lot of stuff around the case to influence the way a juror is going to take a decision.
I get what you're saying there. If you're looking at two sides, and even if let's say it's forget about lawyer and defense prosecution, make it football. If you see one side is taking the time to put their plays together effectively after the huddle, and they break and they actually put that together and they work out their plan and they do a few short drives up the field and they get enough points to win the game, you see that as well organized. And you see the other side as having the talent to take care of it, but not having the skills to line those ducks up in a row, if you will. So I do understand that point, but I certainly think it helps create a narrative in the juror's mind when the judge is already setting, out the example initially that one side is and one side isn't, not ever giving that other side a chance to make up in her mind the fact that they weren't organized. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, great point. What about this comment from hello, Dan? Thank you for being here, Curious Contrarian. This comment from Shay. What about Judge Gold deciding not to preserve evidence after?
I don't even know what that means.
What the fuck is that?
What is it? But what does it mean that she doesn't preserve evidence? So they threw away the sticks. They threw away. I mean, did that mean they did what? The clothes go back to the family that they found? I don't understand. What does it mean when she says not to preserve evidence? Wouldn't that just be in the evidence room forever? I don't know how that stuff works, honestly.
I agree. I don't understand either, but she's right. I heard or I read that.
Yeah, also. I did hear it too. Yeah.
And I think if there's going to be an appeal in the future, and the appeal is going to be granted, they need to have that evidence. You cannot just destroy the evidence. That's bad. In my
Yeah, that
opinion.
doesn't make sense to me at all, and that needs to be a point that is further investigated, in my opinion. Maybe not by me, but I don't think it would hurt us to find out from a professional exactly what that means. Is that normal? I mean, I'm sure it's normal to some degree. You can't keep everything. How many warehouses are you going to build? There's a lot of murders in this country. But at the same time, again, like you said, if you're talking about an appeal process, it seems it should be just against the damn law for anyone to destroy anything until the process is completely over. But I'm a pizza guy from Kalamazoo, Michigan. What the hell do I know?
No, and she knows. She knows that the appeal is gonna be at least asked for. So the common sense is to preserve the evidence. I don't understand that, but anyways, let's continue with the video here, Farmer.
Why are we like the same person? Because I was always saying the same thing. I kept telling Kevin, I'm like, she looks like one of the women from Law and Order. She's like always very well put together.
And she didn't wear the same outfit twice, not once, which is pretty impressive.
I agree. And
this makes
one
me
end, very
uncomfortable.
attentive.
I'm
On
going to raise
another
my
end,
hand.
It makes me think.
Yeah, go ahead, Farmer.
This makes me uncomfortable. This whole conversation, this giggling, this back and forth about, she was well dressed. Does she want to go out on a date with her, and that's fine, or is she there to fairly judge a serious matter? I mean, I'm not hearing that from this jurist at this point, and it's quite disturbing. Go ahead.
I agree. I'm not impressed.
It's the most ridiculous shit I've ever heard.
I don't know. Maybe the other 11 jurors were very bright, but I'm not impressed with this juror at all. And sorry, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but
right.
Oh man,
right.
Yeah. I hope not all of them were like that, and I'm trying to be okay, and not to be. I'm not trying to bash her, but oh my god,
right. I'm sure she's getting enough of that.
She's
Look,
not
I'm not
she's
a
not-
brilliant person either, but I don't feel like in my first interview after a hugely public, if not the most public murder trial in our nation for the year at least, to come up and start talking about all that. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Fred.
No, it's okay. Remember when those YouTubers like Tom Webster, Bob Mora, Andrea Bockhart, all of them were reporting during the process, and they were telling us what were the type of questions the jurors were asking during the process. Those were great questions, and in my mind, oh my God, those jurors were bright.
I know. Bright. What happened? What the hell happened?
I don't know. Maybe this is the rotten apple. I don't know, man. But oh my god.
Well, I mean, how many of these jurors have spoken out? Do we know that? There are 12 of them, but there are also aren't there a room of alternates that hear the whole thing also pretty much? They're just not, or aren't there some alternates that also sit out beyond the 12, like a sit-in for a play that can take over for the actor or actress if they get hurt on stage? Let's say a jurist has a heart attack in the trial and they're now dead. They don't just go with 11. They're able to plug one in. They're an alternate jurist. What do those people have to say? I'd like to know what all of them have to say. If one of these, I think if she's the only one speaking out, it's making all of them look worse than what they are.
Yeah. So far, I think she's the only one that had spoken, but I don't know. That's what I understand. But anyways, not impressed. Let's continue.
Not impressed so far. I mean, maybe she'll eat a smart pill or something halfway through this, and we'll be very impressed. We'll see.
I doubt it, but let's see.
There were parts of this trial that were probably a little bit slow, and they were noticing other things. And the judge apologized for delays, and she noticed what people were watching and noticed that one of the lawyers didn't wear the same outfit the whole time. It's like, that's pretty wild to think that was something that she noticed. Perceptive. Interesting.
Cut you off. I'm so sorry. What else were you going to say about Stacey Teener?
No, I didn't know this at the beginning when I didn't know that they have planned who's going to cross and who's going to ask who the questions. I didn't know they already knew who was going to talk to who, and it's strategy. But I realized that a little bit as it went. Literal. Approachable in a sense, or I liked them. Other in all of their roles, I think they all did a really good job.
I want to go on to the defense. I guess Andrew Baldwin.
I liked them. More than Rosie, you know, if we're comparing, I think he was more approachable in a sense, or just not as like intimidating. Because I don't know if Rosie was trying to, but he just always seemed like intimidating. Like, even because we don't like talk to these people or anything, but just even like making eye contact, you like try not to look him in the eye, you know. But with Baldwin, you know, we would make eye contact, I would smile, and I think he did a really good job. I would laugh sometimes with like his one question on each of the yellow pieces of paper, and we're flipping those over after we ask a question. That kind of I thought was funny sometimes, but he has a process and it works for him. So
yeah, those seed chapters or chapter seeds.
That's what he calls them.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned Brad Rosie. What did you think of him?
And I don't know if he's like the lead person or if it's like they both are, but it almost seemed like a ego thing too. I don't know, like, or maybe that's just the kind of person.
So she felt like Rosie had more of an ego. I think that's what kind of I was trying to get out earlier. And
here for once, I agree with her. Just a matter of perception. Of course, Baldwin seems to be more approachable, right? And Baldwin, he's kind of arrogant, so of course that shouldn't be a factor for to take a decision. But just talking about perception, I have the same perception. You know, Baldwin is very approachable, like a teddy bear, a nice guy, and Baldwin is like the
is
jerk.
this what they're even? But Cryptex, is this what they're even asking her? Like, what does she think of the fucking shoes the judge is wearing behind the dais? I mean, aren't they really asking her what kind of preparation for defense did Rossi make? Not did he tell funny jokes or eat yellow paper, whatever the fuck she's talking about. Excuse my language, but aren't they looking for a little more analytical breakdown of the process itself and not people's personality traits? I mean, it's not People Magazine or I mean, not that she's even qualified to flip through one of those, but I mean, my point is, the way she's I think what Curious Contrarian has on here is she's just an airhead, but this is part of our system here in America that sleuth, how you doing? Look, and again, I don't want to pile on, but she doesn't sound qualified to bag groceries to me. And I think what they want from her is more of a presentation on the prosecution and the defense's approach to the trial, not what kind of deodorant they put on in the morning. No offense.
I think they started with, let's say, easy questions just to make her comfortable. You know, I hope the next questions are going to be more intelligent, let's say. But I agree with you. It's kind of light so far. So let's continue.
Yeah, look, I'm not saying I would do any better in her position, but I'm not in her position. I would just keep my damn mouth shut. Because after a trial like that, the fact that she's the only one out there talking and saying the least smart things in the room, if you will, isn't helping anything, in my opinion. And after a trial, you should keep your mouth shut, just like you did during the damn trial, my opinion.
Yeah, no, you would do much better. I'm pretty sure about that. I'm gonna continue here.
I don't know if we'll ever see that, but yeah.
I
would consider it an honor to be on a jury. It's part of my civic duty. I think it's part of all of our civic duty to do that at some point in our lives. I've just never been asked. But go ahead, let's roll on with this interview and continue responding to it.
Yeah, continue here.
A lot of reports from inside the courtroom, and again, I wasn't inside there, so a lot of this is reacting just from a lawyer's perspective on when we talk to jurors, what we look for, what we don't, how we can get better, how we can't. Lawyers have certain personality styles, ways that they do things, And everybody kind of said that Rosie was more direct. Baldwin was a little friendlier. Rosie was a little more aggressive when he needed to be. Some people liked it, some people didn't. And we say this about all sorts of lawyers. We said it when Emily and I were talking about Jay-Z and Jay-Z's lawyer Spyro, Tony Busby, whether we're talking about Alan Jackson, whether we're talking about Brennan. And, you know, sometimes you guys like lawyers, you don't like lawyers, but the ones that have the direct and kind of control you personality, which is very common in trial lawyers, very common in successful trial lawyers. But we always talk about the fact that if a juror doesn't like you, or they're not with you, as we say it, you know, in trial law, if they're not with you, that can backfire. That can feel like an ego. That can feel condescending. And for Rosie's perspective, if that's his personality and that's his style, it's hard to change your style. If you're really a direct kind of bulldog, it's hard to be, you know, a golden retriever in trial. And if you're a golden retriever, it's hard to be a bulldog. So you've got to learn when to tone it up, when to tone it down, when it's appropriate, when it's not appropriate. But you also got to realize that when you lose, these are probably going to be I bet he's not surprised by these comments. I'll just say. And sometimes when you lose, you're going to get these comments. When you win, they're going to be like, we just believed everything he said. He controlled the courtroom. He controlled everything about it. He wouldn't let any witnesses wiggle out. You know, we appreciated how hard he fought for his client. So it can be the same lawyer, just depending on which way it goes or depending on the trial, it can be very different reviews from the jurors.
Just going to stop 1 second here to answer to some questions. Dan, jury duty sucks, and I'm glad it wasn't me. Me too. And I agree with you, Farmer. It's a big honor to be a juror as a citizen, but I wouldn't like to be there. You know, I take vacations to be with my dog. I cannot be without her during 1 week. She's gonna be depressed. I'm gonna be depressed, and I'm not gonna do a good job being a juror because my mind is gonna be elsewhere. You know.
Well, it sounds like you know the jury and the judge are pretty you know, massaging each other's feet during the trial. Anyways, it kind of sounds like. So maybe you could talk the judge into letting you bring your dog. That sounds like or your kitty. Maybe she like to pet your kitty. You know, I don't know.
Yeah. And Matahari says perception is everything. Maybe it's not everything, but it's very important. And it's true. If you don't like anyone, maybe, let's say, talk about a YouTuber, just to say, maybe he's telling you, or he has a bright theory, but you just don't like the guy. Fuck this guy. I don't buy your theory. Sometimes
you're right, though, but Matahari is right, and that saying that says, you know, I'll paraphrase the saying, you know, when you first meet someone, that's usually the impression you are going to have of them. Even if you look at something as not that long ago in 1960, when Richard Nixon and John F. Kennedy had the first television live debate on, you know, national television, you can see that Richard Nixon looks like he's waxed. Like, have you ever seen a wax statue sweat and swallow hard, like he's very nervous? Whereas, you know, John Kennedy was smooth, and he really used that television medium to portray himself. Now, that didn't change either one of their messages. What it did is what Matahari said: perception is everything. Thanks for that comment, Matahari. Go ahead, Cryptex.
Look who's here, Farmer. Please read the comment of your friend, Anna Lisette.
Yes. Nice to see Anna Lisette, actually. It's been a couple shows. I got the idea Rossi took care of technical aspects of the trial. Baldwin and Auger were the warm, fuzzy partners. Even so, they all had a job to do. They had the defendant's life in their hands. Exactly why I don't, I guess, understand why a judge would be commenting initially at all outwardly on people that are organized versus disorganized. That seems like a sidebar to me, something the public shouldn't even hear. But go ahead with your thought on that.
Yeah, let's continue with the video here.
See if there's
you were Anna Lisette going to mention, put up her next comment because it makes me look smarter.
It's Murder Sheet
and
podcast
I always love that.
Who did the podcast, got the juror on.
Shit, I did something stupid.
I took two.
Is that you and your
The
dog?
information that we can get from.
Give me 1 second.
Cryptex can't be a friggin' juror because he misses his dog. No, I get it, though. I know you love your dog. I think that's a beautiful thing, man. And that's a beautiful dog, by the way. Little crispy, right? Little crispy?
Kipsy.
Whatever.
The same.
I would. I love you, man. I love you. I love my friend to the north.
Give me just 1 second because
Sure.
I put my finger in the wrong place. I have to come back to the place where we
So
were.
that there's like a stressful.
Well, you work on that.
something
I'll
going
read
on.
Anna's comment. She said I was going to mention the Kennedy-Nixon debates, just like I did, and Kennedy won the election because he was better looking, and he was certainly better looking. But conversely to that, I thought Nixon looked particularly waxy and not even a bit alive, really, to be honest with you. Curious Contrarian says, I'm glad Tragos has an unbiased take on this trial. I'm not sure what that means. Andrea Burkhart made a poop diaper out of grifting lawyers with bias. I hope she took this approach and observed without just taking the cash route. I'm not sure what Dan means by all of that, but it is curious, Dan. I'll give you that.
Okay. Let me go with the video and let's try to find the time where we were. Let me just try here for me.
Here.
Forgot I was wearing the pink glasses tonight. I jumped on the air quick,
I'm sure, like, the point of wanting to, because I feel the same way. Like, I'm so glad that you guys were able to be there the amount of times you were and get the correct message of what actually happened in court through. So I totally get your side, but as a juror, I didn't, experience any of that. And I just thought and think that he just like a boss, and did a really good job. I
do think it's really interesting too to like read the comments and see people talking as we're listening. And like when there's a judge, there's been judges people love in the chat and judges people hate. I will just tell you, whether I love or hate a judge.
I think we listened to that already. I'm gonna advance.
You know what? It was worth listening to again. I'll be honest with you, because it just reaffirmed my feeling that she's batshit bonkers. This jurist. I mean, she is really. Someone said it earlier. It's like she's trying to get on The Bachelor. She's not trying to talk about the most prolific murder trial of 2024.
Yeah, I'm not impressed, and this is the type of juror that is gonna be influenced by the opinion of the other jurors, which who I expect to be more intelligent than her. I don't know. I hope
Anna would like to breaking news. Breaking news from Anna.
If all of them, they had the same IQ of this juror, oh my God.
Well, I doubt they did. I mean, again, you mentioned earlier, and I agree with you, the questions the jury was asking after the trial, when they wanted to wrap things up, I thought were poignant. They were well thought out questions. So somebody on that jury, hopefully the head one was fine, and I'm comfortable with the decision. I believe Richard Allen is guilty of these murders. So for me, this isn't, I still just question, are other actors involved in a larger, circle of shit? But I haven't ever said that I thought Richard Allen wasn't guilty. He knew way too much, in my opinion. You had that whole Dan Doolin thing, and I think there are still tie-ins with online things that haven't been brought out to the public yet, in my opinion. But with with that being said, this certainly doesn't help shore up anyone's confidence on the side of justice. That's for sure.
Yeah, this is ammunition for the pro Allen side, and I agree with you. There's most likely there are other actors here. Let's continue here.
I was always saying the same thing. I kept telling Kevin, I'm like, she looks like one of the women from Law and Order. She's just like, it's very well put together.
And she didn't wear the same outfit twice, not once, which is pretty impressive.
I agree. And
we definitely heard this.
Very attentive. On another end, it makes me
keep it on, man. I think you should let it roll, man. It's good. Jesus Christ, she's talking. They didn't let him wear the same outfit 2 days in a row. What are we talking about here? Are we talking about justice for Libby and Abby? Or are we talking about Are we talking about some jurist that now wants to go on and have a career, thinking she can talk on these shows or some shit?
This is so light. Oh my God, man.
It makes me want to hurl.
Oh yeah. I don't know if I want to cry or I want to laugh. I really don't know, man. So sad.
It depends. It just depends on how you look at it. If you want to look again at the seriousness of the crime, and you want to stay grounded in reality, 2 young girls were murdered, and there's nothing that's ever going to bring them back. And now we have to listen to some babblehead go on about who's wearing what, and if it's hip for her time. I don't know. It just doesn't wash well with me.
I don't want to have Albert Einstein in the jury, but I want to have someone with a little bit of intelligence. It's just so sad, so sad. And as you said, it's the life of a person here. It's the future of a person. Even if he's guilty, at least he has the right to be to have intelligent jurors. Let's say whatever. Let's continue with this.
There were parts of the trial that were probably a little bit slow, and they were noticing other things. And the judge apologized for delays, and she noticed what people were watching and noticed that one of the lawyers didn't wear the same outfit the whole time. It's like, that's pretty wild. I think that was something that she noticed. Perceptive, interesting.
Cut you off. I'm so sorry. What else were you going to say about Stacey Teener?
No, I didn't know this at the beginning when I didn't know.
The worst is that the murder sheet, they are enjoying that. They're having a good time. Huh?
I'd like to point out something. You may be doing it first. Are we reacting to a reaction video? And how many levels down the road can we plan on taking that? Is someone now going to react to our reaction to their reaction? I'm just asking for a friend. Go ahead.
It's an infinite loop.
Right. And it's like that movie where everyone's asshole is sewed to their mouth and they're eating the next one's shit. I forget the name of that movie, but we have to be careful, and we've talked about this in the information age of a closed cycle of bullshit. I just find it kind of funny, and I know that that we're always groundbreakers. Cryptex, thank you for helping me along the way, man.
Inception, as Dan says. Let's continue here.
No, that they have planned who's going to cross and who's going to ask who the questions. I didn't know they already knew who was going to talk to who, and it's strategy. But I realized that a little bit as it went. Literal, approachable in a sense, or I liked them. Together in all of their roles, I think they all did a really good job.
I want to go on to the defense. I guess Andrew Baldwin.
I like them. More than Rosie, if we're comparing, I think he was more approachable in a sense, or just not as intimidating. Because I don't know if Rosie was trying to, but he just always seemed intimidating. Even because we don't talk to these people or anything, but just even making eye contact, you try not to look him in the eye, But with Baldwin, we would make eye contact. I would smile. And I think he did a really good job. I would laugh sometimes with his one question on each of the yellow pieces of paper, and we're flipping those over after we ask a question. That I thought was funny sometimes, but he has a process and it works for him. So
yeah, those seed chapters or chapter seeds.
That's what he calls them.
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you, Spicy Burrito, for donating to this guy, whoever he is.
Who?
Spicy Burrito. Just saying thank you for your super chat to whoever this lawyer is. Well, I'm reacting to everything, Cryptex. I'm sorry.
We need Burrito here to be rich, man. Look who's here.
Hey, look. Steve, all right.
Oh, yeah.
Cryptex and I will be on Steve's show afterwards reacting to this very video.
read his comment, Farmer.
Okay. Few people are more biased than I when it comes to law enforcement, but I do not defend corruption, or would I allow an innocent person to be convicted if I possessed exculpatory evidence. And Steve, let me tell you, that's what makes you different than 0.5% of the people in charge. But don't let that small number, because I agree with you. I think on the whole, people that go into law enforcement and spend years in that field, just like teachers, just like people that don't make great money for risking everything, basically. Maybe not teachers in a in a life threatening always, although they have been recently, like law enforcement. But again, I think the numbers would be very small when it comes to conspiratorial actors within that profession. But that 0.5% can really taint, and taint's not a pretty word in so many ways, but it can really taint the efforts of good, honest law enforcement, in my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, man. And I don't know if you have any question for Steve, also Farmer. We
But
should
I do want to. I don't know if I have any questions. I want to. I want to say both Justice and Bailey. Look at Justices here. Also,
we have
the last
Steve, we have
report.
Justice. Oh my God!
I thought both Siskel and Ebert were brilliant. First of all, she's not in that same field as Siskel and Ebert.
Anyway, I'm gonna drop the link if Justice or Steve they want to call. You're welcome. No stress. Okay,
help us react. I guess we're reacting to all these reactions, and it's nice to know that people are caring.
It's like a Farmer in those movies when you have a mirror and another mirror and another mirror and another mirror.
It's like a disturbing fun house, only we're a little bit more fun because you don't have to look fat while you do it.
Hey Dan, you have to react to this video, man, in your next show. Let's continue here.
I don't know if he's like the lead person or if it's like they both are, but it almost seemed like a ego thing too. I don't know, or maybe that's just the kind of person.
So she felt like Rosie had more of an ego. I think that's what kind of I was trying to get out earlier. And a lot of reports from inside the courtroom. And again, I wasn't inside there. So a lot of this is reacting just from a lawyer's perspective on when we talk to jurors, what we look for, what we don't, how we can get better, how we can't. Lawyers have certain personality styles, ways that they do things. And everybody kind of said that Rosie was more direct. Baldwin was a little friendlier. Rosie was a little more aggressive when he needed to be. Some people liked it. Some people didn't. And we say this about all sorts of lawyers. We said it when Emily and I were talking about Jay-Z and Jay-Z's lawyer Spyro.
I think we already heard that. I have to advance the video here. Sorry, guys.
True, but I didn't pick that up the first time. I think it is a good point that he is keying in on that she's not just saying it independently, but he has gleaned also that other people are noticing these same personality traits within the prosecution and defense. So maybe she gets a little more credit at that point. Okay, but go ahead.
Yeah, right.
I was thinking it could go either way. When you have an expert that thinks this is kind of junk science. I don't really agree with their methodology, but if you're a juror and this person sits on the stand and everybody says this person's an expert and they say getting up to it. But like I said, and like I asked every single person that came on, how many times do you have this many confessions? How many times do you have a situation where there's somebody that's as, beat down as Richard Allen was? And a lot of the things that were unfair prior to the trial and that are still going to be discussed and appealed and fought about. When you have a jury who doesn't know as much about the case and they hear all these confessions, I was thinking it could go either way. When you have an expert that thinks this is kind of junk science. I don't really agree with their methodology, but if you're a juror and this person sits on the stand and everybody says this person's an expert and they say, you match the bullet, I can understand how a jury got to a guilty verdict. I'm not saying that I think Richard Allen did it or that I think Richard Allen's innocent. I don't know. I don't have an opinion on that. I haven't been as closely involved in this case. I don't think the prosecution had enough to prove this case.
I agree. I don't think they had enough to prove it. Even if I think Richard Allen is involved, they didn't have enough material to prove it.
Without the confessions of Richard Allen. I just don't think there was.
Go ahead, Farmer.
No, I just want to reiterate the point that Steve said. First of all, also, we're going to welcome here in a second Don't Hate Create into the studio. That'll be good. And I may even pop out if somebody else wants to pop in. Cryptex could have a rotation going. But I do want to point out that there are a lot of good law enforcement type people out there like Steven. If he did have, if somebody in the system had exculpatory evidence, I really do hope that they would have turned that over. And I feel like they would have. But it only takes 0.5% of people in charge to screw something up where something doesn't get entered into an Orion system or perhaps a misconception about someone looking at a stock ticker versus looking at yellow dots on a screen, tracking people in real time or finding out where that phone is, or why did they do $1 million river search after the lie detector test then, questions like the ski mask incident and so forth that never got answered, that leaves a lot open. Cryptex, go ahead. I didn't mean to bum everybody out. Sorry.
Hello.
We have down here.
Oh,
So
man.
done.
What up, G?
Welcome.
Hey,
Welcome to the jungle.
What'd you guys think of this so far?
Oh my God, I'm sad. I'm really sad. I'm so disappointed.
I tried to warn all you guys. This is typical. I watch a lot of trials, and this is fairly typical.
Oh my God.
Oh, we watched the Kim
true,
Potter's trial. The cop that was trying to tase the guy and shot him, and they had somebody on there that was like one of the founding members of SWAT in the United States, and the jury didn't like him because he was brash, so they didn't listen to a word he said.
Imagine
ridiculous.
Imagine if one of your relatives is killed, and you have this juror on the.
I wouldn't want to imagine if one of my relatives was a juror. You just saying.
No, man.
Listen, I don't see why it's so hard to sit back and digest honest information. At that point, it's like the old days. They had what they called people would just basically input information into the system. Tick, 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 tick. Well, that's what you have to do as a jurist. You have to sit there and let it intake into your brain. And then if there's something about whatever they're talking about, technically speaking, it's your job then to follow up, in my opinion, on that to find out the technical aspects of what you, as a jurist, don't fucking understand. Excuse my French. And also, why did the French teach us all these terrible words?
Imagine you're 21. All you've ever done is look at TikTok and boy bands and whatever else, and now you got picked for a jury like this. You don't even know anything about it. Like that. That's you can get that. Yeah,
allowed her to be on it, but But I agree with what Justice Serb Daily has put in the chat, and that they had enough, or they wouldn't have found him guilty. And in justice, I think we're forming, and I think Cryptex feels the same way. I don't know what other creators out there. What I feel like is what's forming is a group of people who are okay with Richard Allen being charged and being found guilty of this crime. The question still will always be, was there any pre or post facto involvement by anybody else? I mean, even information wise and knowing, not necessarily helping in the crime, because I don't believe in small towns. Small towns like this in Midwest America, the much gets by. Something this big doesn't get by everybody without people just kind of knowing. And there was always that comment that the people in Peru understood why there were two sketches and the people in Delphi were clueless. And I remain clueless about it because it's still a mystery to me. So
I'll just take it like this too. Imagine everybody else knows and thinks this person that doesn't think from the way she talks, she might pick up on something that was said during the trial that she could compel the entire jury to go the other way or one way too. It's kind of good to have a mix of things like that because obviously it's lucky she wasn't the decision maker.
She might accidentally, find out like someone was wearing a certain kind of like lipstick or something, and she wouldn't even know she was helping, but somehow point out and be the hero of the trial. I get it. Fun. That's nice in a half hour, mediocre network comedy sketch every week, but in real life where two little girls are dead, I don't think she should have been on the jury at all, in my opinion. She sounds like a moron. And I don't mean to be rude, and that is rude, but But she shouldn't be out there talking like that. She just should be quiet, you know.
Yeah, and just can you read this comment here from Justice Farmer?
Sure, we are not done. Anthony Schatz set up the meeting. Holman stated it post-interview. I just love justice served daily because now I don't have to feel like I'm on an island by myself.
No,
They did allude to
I
it.
think there's an island where Farmer, Justice, and myself we live together with this theory, but for sure it's common sense, guys.
Yeah, we're not asking to be rescued. There's no we're fine being on the island by ourselves.
Yeah, maybe Dan is gonna rescue us.
No,
Maybe he's gonna try.
I say it's a good theory. We don't have any proof of it. And they
There's
don't
no
either
proof.
yet.
I know. There's just
There's an implicit proof. No, I think there's a proof. The Wabash River search is for sure they found something after the interrogation to Klein in the Grissom Air Force Base, and that's why.
Okay, I should rephrase Cryptex. We as the observers don't have the proof if there is proof.
Of course. No.
You know what? I mean, you're not much of a contrarian. Maybe you should change to Dan the common sense guy.
I'm agreeable today, man.
You're not, I don't know what's going on if you didn't.
I was in that chat that we're watching, making funny jokes the whole time.
Or maybe I woke up and I'm a complete contrarian and I'm just not.
You are today.
I feel like we're really on the same page here. But go ahead, Cryptex. So roll that video.
Yeah,
as he rolls his video on that video.
You can interrupt whatever you want.
There was enough there. That's just me personally. But again, I was not sitting in the courtroom, so I don't even put a lot of stock in my own opinion in this case, which is why I like hearing from a juror. But what's really interesting coming in this interview is what pieces of evidence they kind of dismissed and yet still came to a guilty verdict. And that's still yet to come.
He's reading the comment of Annalise.
One of the things she mentioned is
I read it?
like how
No, I was making a joke. But you can read it. Bad joke. I'm gonna continue here.
I like it.
How many of these cars existed? They didn't know. Then they went and found it and brought it back. It's like, how did you not already know that? I always think that's interesting. Same thing if you remember, like in Murdaugh, they didn't have the GMC data, and then the GMC data ends up showing up in the middle of the trial. What do jurors think? Well, in this case, they think, how did you not have that? And then here it is. That seemed easy enough to get to.
Good point.
Then they talk about the police interviews, which I found her comments on that to be very interesting in the jurors, or at least her view of the police interviews. Let's take a listen to that.
The prosecution's frequent issues with the large monitor screen also proved to be a source of consternation for the jury. They wanted to feel like their time was being used well, and those technological
concerns about Richard Allen's second interview with police.
Away from our families and jobs for so long, like our time is very valuable.
We have Fishy here with us. Hello, Fishy.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. I'm just popping in here because Dan told me to.
Okay. He's your boss.
How you doing, Delphi?
Yeah, he's my boss. He's official.
That's
my
right.
boss.
That's right.
You're acting like a pimp, man. Respect, Fishy, man. Please.
That's right. I keep my pimp hand strong.
Not acceptable, man. Not acceptable. What do you think about the juror so far, Fishy? Impressed? Not impressed?
Don't be polite. Be funny.
No, I have no opinion either way. I'm here to form an opinion now, I guess.
Okay.
Wow. That's very open. And you're reacting. That's how you should react. I guess that's how these things work. And you know what? There are a lot of reaction shows. I didn't even know that that's what you called them at first. I was just enjoying the shows that I was watching. Most of them pertain to UFO type stuff like The Backyard Professor or Vetted or some of these other shows. But I was really enjoying them. Then I realized there was a whole genre of YouTube shows, these reaction shows. But I've never seen what I'm going to call now the overreaction show that we're doing, where we're actually reacting to someone else's reaction. But go ahead.
Oh yeah, that's an overreaction.
Oh yeah, Fishy. When we get off here, we all have to react to this video I told Cryptex I would.
Definitely.
That's
Yeah.
funny. Right on.
Okay, let's continue with the video.
Sure.
You can interrupt whenever you want, guys.
In this juror's mind, she also had.
All right, so there's people asking if I take into account the psychosis that he snapped. Yes, and I've talked about that a ton in a ton of podcasts. I'm not going to say there's not issues with these confessions. There's tons of issues with these confessions. That's not at all what I was saying. Okay, let's back up. Okay, there's a different way to look at the case when we're going through it. We're reviewing it. We're hearing the evidence. We're hearing the issues. We're seeing what's going on pre-trial. There's a lot the judge kept out I didn't think she should have kept out. There's a lot of the way that the trial went that I did not think was necessarily fair for Richard Allen. There are major issues with the confessions. All that being said, you have to realize a juror sitting there not knowing anything, who's trying to make the biggest decision in Richard Allen's life and the victims' lives. And if the guy sitting over there saying he did it, it's easier for us to sit here and pontificate and discuss on YouTube and podcasts like, well, maybe there was psychosis, maybe it was this, maybe it was that. But the jury's got to come down to the decision, and we have to respect their decision at the end of the day. You don't have to agree with it always, but to respect it, at least if they did the process and went through the process appropriately, which is what I want to listen to with this juror and see the process that they went through in their decision.
Can I just interrupt and say that Peter Tragos is amazing, and this is one of the things that I try to tell people when they hyperanalyze the jury's decision.
Yes, you can.
I'm just glad that he is saying it, because this is the reality of it. People are hyperanalyzing everything, and it just doesn't help. It'll have to go through the appellate issues.
You could even relate it to just how society talks about in general economics and saying there's inflation when really, indeed, there isn't really. And there's always inflation, but it isn't until the point of hyperinflation that it affects the common citizen really in an overbearing way. And that hasn't happened yet. Not like certainly it did in the late 70s when there were lines a mile long waiting for, a $4 gallon of gasoline in 1979. I remember it. So, people don't sometimes draw, and Dan, that was a good point, the distinction between two important things.
Yeah, 100%. It's
cold out here. Former, I don't know what it's like up there. It's like 10 degrees here.
Let's not turn this into like a fight in the chat about this juror being a bad person or some kind of plant or something like that, or how old or young, intelligent or unintelligent or whatever. Let's like we do with every juror interview. Let's take a listen. Did they go through the process appropriately? Did they weigh things appropriately? Did they discuss it? Did they follow the law? Is there any indication? That's really what I'm looking for. This is not going to be a situation where I trash this person or that person. That's not what this is going to be as far as the jury interview, but I'm really interested in what is their thought process. And there are some incredibly interesting revelations that she makes here coming up about what pieces of evidence they didn't really consider as being important.
Had concerns about Richard Allen's second interview with police. The one he did with Lieutenant Jerry Holman of the Indiana
Can I just say something real quick?
That was something that weighed on her mind.
Yeah, go ahead, Farmer.
Somebody has got a hum. First of all, I'm hearing some feedback.
That's me.
Okay. But I don't know if you can put Justice Serve Daly's comment back up. I did want to read it really quick. About the Klein's modus operandi. So she says, Justice says, we do have the Klein's modus operandi of them setting up meetups for Emily Ann 45, as we know that was one of the nefarious accounts that the police didn't speak as much about as the Anthony Shots account, but it was out there with her 45-year-old dad, Holman, and said the girls thought they were meeting Anthony Shots. They need RA to tell. And I agree. And Justice, do you think that the reason that maybe he's not ratting out other people if there are other actors is that would essentially screw up his chances in the appeal process by pointing the finger back at his own guilt and admitting other people were there with him as they did these heinous crimes? I'll ask you that, Justice, and maybe you'll respond in the chat.
Legally, he would have to do that in a plea agreement. It's not going to work after you're convicted.
I see.
I've
She
listened
said
to the
that maybe to
podcast for
follow up,
that.
we need
I hear
transcripts
what
to
you
know
guys-
what was said during the trial. They should be released. Okay, I agree with that. Yeah.
Fishy was talking.
Sorry about that. I just wanted to read her comment really quick.
I wasn't talking, but can you
Oh.
when you start it again, can you go back a little bit to just a tiny bit to where it starts? That section.
Yeah,
Which
I blabbed over it.
Which one?
Just
Like
right
10
when
seconds back.
Farmer started blabbing. No, I'm just kidding. You weren't blabbing.
Shut up, Farmer! I'm trying to hear it.
Well, you know, don't overreact.
Fishy says hello, guys.
What's that? Oh, you should put that up on a solo picture there so we can see you big with the baby there.
She wants to hear about the case.
But I'm like, okay, well, that's true. But I just feel like he was very tough in the interview. It's realizing like that's how they're supposed to be. They're not supposed to, like, interrogations are supposed to be walks in the park. That makes total sense. And at the end, and I'm sure we'll get into like deliberations and things, but that was one of the things that we rewatched as far as video evidence. We watched the interview, and so, you know, we were able to have discussion about him, and it was kind of mixed. Like, I think a lot of people were like, well, that's how they're supposed to be. Like, that's how.
And I believe these are the very animated interviews where people are, you know, the officers are yelling at him and like berating him, and he doesn't break. He doesn't confess. There were certain parts where people thought maybe he was manipulating his wife in this situation. Other people who thought the fact that his wife was brought in showed that even more he didn't do this. And if he would have broken in this moment. And she's talking about how some of the jurors watched that and thought, yeah, that's how it is. But she didn't necessarily think that that's how it was. And she's going to make some other comments I find interesting here.
Interrogations go. And for some reason, for me personally, the interview, I just thought, you know, a guy that's never been in with the law before, and he didn't call for a lawyer. He clearly doesn't know what he's supposed to do, but he's not admitting to it. So I was like, the interviews to me just felt like he was just too calm and really didn't know anything to have done it.
Yeah.
That was
see
her
a
thought
sociopath's interview,
after
though.
listening to the police interviews. That this guy.
You said Dan?
I said you'd have to watch a sociopath at a police interview, or like
But-
Ed Kemper.
I mean, Dan, do you think that he is like
No,
acts
I
like
don't
a
think he's a
sociopath
sociopath.
whatsoever? Like,
No,
I don't.
no, I'm just saying that's not a good argument to make.
But
they
it
don't.
is in the case that he's not a sociopath. So
I can't say he's not either, but
I feel
No, it's just a
confident
bad
saying
argument.
that he is not. Like, I feel pretty confident based on like the diagnosis of him being like dependent on, or like all those. I don't know. But anyways, sorry.
I just want to say, Anna Lizette says Holman just said they can't rule out the girl's plan to meet someone that way. So maybe I haven't made that distinction. I did think he said in the interview that they were going to meet Anthony Schatz. So there's a bit of a conflict there, I guess. Maybe Anthony Schatz they can't prove or disprove. But I thought he was a little more clear in that interview that he said that they were going to meet Anthony Schatz, alluding to the fact that they had spoken with that profile that day for sure. But justice served, and both Mr. Steve are responding to something in the response section.
And what about Keegan Clan saying I was supposed to meet the girls, but they didn't show up? So that with Holman's statement too.
I believe Holman was saying that they can't access some of the messages from the applications. I'm guessing he's referring to Snapchat, that they could not retrieve some of those messages, and so they don't know who they were talking to. That's how I took what he said.
But when Keegan said that he was supposed to meet the girls.
Yeah. And then that's basically confirmed. Yeah.
Can you guys correct me if I'm wrong, if that part of him meeting with somebody was secondhand
to be just.
Or he said I was supposed to meet with that person to someone else. They never had him actually saying it, correct?
To someone else?
I
Yeah, he
mean, I
said it
don't
to
know
one
if
of
he
Libby's
talks to him.
friends.
Yeah,
Like that
yeah.
was what they talked about. It wasn't they had a message with him saying let's meet or something like
Yeah.
that, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Clearing up for Mr. Steve to Anna Lizette, he was saying, as a phrase, to be just, meaning to be guided in truth and reason. But you have a point also, and I think he's laughing about that. So I think it was just possibly a misphrasing, Anna Lizette, and he didn't want you to misunderstand that. Shay says, who brought in the Odinist into it? For the record, I have never once said the words he is innocent. So Shay making that distinction also. Justice then saying Holman did say they were going to meet Anthony Schatz in writing in Carroll County Comet. So, again, once words are in writing, it's a little more official than just saying it out loud, Yeah, I thought that it was a little more official than we don't know if they were going to meet someone like an Anthony Schatz. I mean, I thought they tied it together a little bit more firmly than that.
No, I saw
a definite connection.
There's a message of him to another girl that said I was supposed to meet them that day. Like they had that, but they didn't have him saying it to them.
No, yeah.
I know it was, but you know what I mean?
You can read the comment of Justice Farmer is going to answer to the Dan's question.
There you go.
Okay. Yeah, from Justice following up saying Anthony Schatz said I was supposed to meet her, but she didn't show to her friend who knew she was meeting him. So I guess maybe it was kind of a more third-party meeting, it sounds like. But a meeting indeed.
Exactly.
So, I mean, a meeting's a meeting. Holman was open to the girls meeting KK and Anthony Schatz, but
I only bring that up, Farmer. Sorry.
And I got to agree with Anna just really quick, Dan, then I'll let you go. I mean, if they could have proved it, it seems like they would have arrested somebody for complacency, complicity rather in this crime along with RA, and they didn't do that. So, Anna, you do make an effective point. I mean, no one can really disagree with that based on the facts that are just out there right now. And I just wanted to make that distinction. Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say the only reason I bring that up is because knowing what he was doing, looking for sympathy, talking to these girls, soliciting nude photos, doing all that, you can't, without them having that message, it's hard to even believe it because he lies about every single thing he says. Kagan, that is.
Right.
Like, there's nothing to do. So he could have been lying to the friend to get sympathy, to get in closer, to manipulate them. We have no idea. That doesn't mean what I'm saying is right, but we do know he's a compulsive liar.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
I mean, he did play in the Warped Tour after all.
He's got a Rari.
Yeah.
Couple of them.
I like this word. Now we all get to be the guy in the video at different. I guess I'm the head. I don't know if I'm the head talking now or what, but we could keep reading comments though for just 1 second because people are actually Cryptex. That's one nice thing about your chats is people do take part in them. So let's celebrate that by reading a couple comments here by Shay Watson. I have said there was a critical lack of due process, and that was detrimental because no matter who did it, no one acted alone. And that is a good point. And that would be those tentacles. And maybe those tentacles weren't, like you said, or somebody said in the chat early on, he was charged with abduction, murder 2, they called it, which isn't the same thing everywhere. But in Indiana, that means whatever you did was a serious enough felony that led to someone's death, even though maybe you weren't intending for that person to die through the felony you were committing at the time. Mr. Steve, am I explaining this right? Someone did die.
Felony murder.
And that then opens you up to the same penalties as premeditated murder, sir, which includes the death penalty.
One of the charges. I had 2 of those and 2 regular murder
charges. That was the initial charges.
Yep.
They were making that distinction in the chat, and I wanted to back that up. Thank you.
Gotcha. Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Yeah. I don't know what that means, but
let's run the video. I want to hear the juror.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
A lawyer. He didn't know what he was supposed to do.
Actually, I don't want to hear the juror, but I will do it.
But he didn't confess. He didn't break. He remained calm. He didn't seem like someone who did it. I mean, that was what a lot of other people were saying as well that were coming on the channel and stuff. And I thought, this is somebody who voted guilty, okay? But this is the way she viewed the interviews, and this is the way that she felt Richard Allen was acting in the interviews, not like an automatically guilty person. Thought that was incredibly interesting. Then she talks about the Westfield videos, and the Westfield videos of the jail and how horrible it is. And she said she knows it's horrible and it needs to be replaced. But she actually said, based on the description and some of the comments made, she was expecting it to be worse than what was shown on the video. Him being taken to get an x-ray, his face was black and blue, her head from him hitting his head against the wall. That to me was incredibly, incredibly interesting.
To me too. What do you think about that, guys? I was expecting to have a video where Richard Allen was really being tortured, and according to this juror, that was not the case. So I don't know. What do you think about that?
Definitely seemed like it was overblown when the lawyers are talking about it, but they were seemingly drumming up support. Depends on what your definition of a torture is.
I just very much disagree. I think that people have seen too many movies where they expect it to be like bad and stuff, but I don't know what was on those videos, so I can't really comment too much on that, but I think it's appalling the way he was treated, and I don't think it's overstated. I think if anything, people have no idea what they're talking about. Being in those conditions would break any sane person. So that's my opinion on that.
It's a good point.
You know what? I think that's a damn valid opinion, and having never been in prison, I myself, I can't say for sure that you're wrong on that at all. Don't hate. So I'm not even going to argue with you on that. And I would like to think, as an American or as someone who believes in the Constitution of fairness, that, of course, when someone's guilty of something, that they are punished for something heinous like this. But on the other hand, that people are treated fairly until that point, and even after that point, treated fairly and humanely, because that's what's supposed to separate us from less civilized, so-called civilized civilization. So I'm not going to argue with that point. I think it's a good one that you make.
Yeah. I'll also modify that I could not have handled doing or being like that, or in prison at all, or anything like that. So.
Well, I mean, the best way to stay out of, in my opinion, the best way to stay out of that situation is don't murder anyone.
Or don't talk to the police without a lawyer. Don't talk if you learn anything from true crime, do not talk to the cops without a lawyer. Even if you're trying to help, don't do it.
And anyone in this case that doesn't agree that if he would have not talked at the first interview or at all, if he wouldn't be in prison, I would love you to prove. Because if they just have his car, if he wouldn't have talked to Dan Doolin, they'd have nothing. So if just don't,
well, they almost did have nothing because he talked to Dan Doolin. He could have been the hero of the entire thing, but decided instead to stand next to Doug Carter in the 2019 press conference, looking like a fucking moron. Let's read what Justice Bailey had to say, because she is brilliant. Think about the tentacles or I think what she meant to say is the thing about the tentacles are the catfish, the CSAM, the pedo ring network, because RA alone is not explaining tentacles and we'll all know what we know. And I think what she's saying is the feds could be taking the lead on the ring, and that would make sense because that would involve most likely something on the internet, and that would automatically be, over state lines and federal in nature. So that would be an area where they could assert their authority over a state agency, I believe, also Justice. Yeah. And to Anna, Justice also says Keegan's phone was at his cousin's house on Country Club Road. I believe the TTs, we know who that is. He had a burner. Pedos don't take trackable phones with them. TK is not stupid. Clearly not stupid. If anybody in this whole ring of shit has brains, to me, it's TK. He's the one with the big fucking smile sitting on his motorcycle, letting everybody know, hey, guys, I got away with something. Am I right or wrong, Justice? Come on.
And I think we are underestimating Keegan Klein. To me, Keegan is not stupid at all, either.
Nope. I agree. He learned from the best.
And I love this comment from Anna Lisette. She's totally right.
Yeah, well, Anna Lisette follows up with Holman also said he could not yet discuss the Wabash River search. They may not be done with KK yet. And maybe those charges will be federal. Who knows?
The connection is there. The connection is there. It's clear as crystal, guys. Come on. It's common sense. Freaking common sense.
Let's welcome the Lone Wolf to the chat. Hello, Lone Wolf. How you doing tonight? Says, hey, Cryptex. Just
howdy, Charles.
That's very evil stopping in.
Yeah, let's continue with the video, guys.
Sure, let's do it.
That she thought, based on the explanation, which is why you always got to be careful and you never know exactly how a video is going to play to a jury, but she was expecting it to be much worse. Interesting. She also keeps saying that she was playing devil's advocate. She was giving the defense credence. And the podcast host compliment her on that and say that's what the jurors are supposed to do. So she was saying she was staying in it. She was not going to jump to any conclusions, and she was not an immediate guilty vote when they went back there to vote. Kay Schmidt said, think it's much of a factor. The jurors could deliberate daily and likely bonded in some way. It could be, and we kind of talked about this with some of the other guests I had on. It's unusual from my perspective, not unusual for Indiana, I guess, for them to be able to do this. I think it can change the dynamic to where they start deliberating before the defense has even cross-examined a witness, obviously before the defense has put on any case or any arguments, and just they could come to their conclusion way too early in the case when just the state has put on its case, which is why every defense attorney is like, wait, give us a chance. Wait until we actually put on our case. Christy said, thanks for always being level-headed and fair, Peter. I mean, listen, when it comes to something like this, when people disagree, you know, sometimes they can get so far entrenched on one side that everybody else kind of looks like they're against them. I'm not against anybody. Okay. I'm not against anybody. I just 100%, I want a just outcome. I don't necessarily know what that is in this case. From what I was hearing and what I was reading, it didn't necessarily seem like a fair process, but I wasn't there. Okay. This juror was there. And I know that people are sometimes going to disagree with jurors, and that's okay. And but we have to realize the juror doesn't know everything that everybody else might either know or is saying, or maybe some stuff is true, isn't true. Maybe the juror was confused. Maybe we're confused. I don't know. Right. So I'm going to respect this person's opinion. They sat through the trial. They reviewed the evidence, and it seems like they weighed it.
Can you pause it right there?
Curious said, imagine how much Richard Allen is traded for in.
Yes, that's me. Sorry. Sorry.
Wow. And at first, you're literally reacting to yourself in another reaction video. That's amazing, man. I just want to say you are a first and will always be a first.
But she really did.
That's not what I wanted you to pause it for, though.
Much,
that's absolutely not what I wanted you to pause it for.
Clearly giving props to the defense on how they handled that piece of evidence.
He's not even
remember that now, as we're going to listen to what she talks about in her deliberations. She's saying they didn't really consider the bullet. Okay. And they still got to a unanimous guilty verdict.
Oh man, that's
another great point. So the jurors, they didn't consider the bullet as a factor to get that verdict, you know. So
that's very interesting, because then how did they get him over there and place him there? But first off, I wanted to say about the whole jury discussing the case before it's over, and how that could the defense hasn't had a chance to put on their case yet, and they are already coming to conclusions. And after the whole trial was done, after discussing it during the whole trial, they still were not unanimous, and they were 4-8 at some point, right?
Friday or Saturday or Friday. Yeah, Friday. They were 8-4. Day before they were 8-3 or something like that.
So basically,
Yeah,
like,
they had
I
a
feel
full
like peer
weekend
pressure
duty.
is like what made them come to a unanimous decision. You know, I don't
No.
really feel comfortable.
She said undecided. That's how. I mean, that's
They're
how
not
it goes.
undecided though. If they vote, what they're voting for is like guilty or not guilty, right? Isn't that like?
But isn't that pretty typical in
They
trials?
either
Though?
yes, it
The jury
is.
doesn't always agree right out of the box.
Yeah, that's their job, Fishy, because
That's what the foreman
until
is for,
they
and that's
say
why
we're
they have
not
to-
going to give a verdict and we're not going to come to a verdict, that's when that 8-3 comes into play. Not
Well,
because they'll turn in what they were at.
They have a few decisions, and one of the greatest powers that juries have, and one of the greatest powers that the Constitution enshrines for all Americans, and that's the power of jury nullification. Okay, they can go, you know what, there's something stinks here, and we're nullifying. And what that basically says is, I mean, I don't know what that says, but they can essentially throw that right out the window. I think the judge has to agree with it, but it is a power to the people, sort of. And you know, people don't pull that string often, but if they feel someone say planted evidence or something like that, they absolutely can do that.
Yeah, they can vote not guilty and say whatever they want when it's done, and it doesn't matter.
I reported on something at least over 2 years ago, before Richard Allen was even arrested, and I'd like to remind everyone that Keegan Kline had a friend, and his initials were JJ. And he was charged with CSC at an overnight, and maybe Justice would probably be the only one here that I could think may have a any kind of recollection of this. Anyways, this JJ, we'll say the first name is Joshua, I won't say the last name, happened to be at a sleepover where there were some teenage girls, and not older teenage girls, I mean younger ones, you know, like 12, 13, 14, around the same age as Libby and Abby, where one of those girls said that, and indeed he was charged with inappropriate, you know, that's a nice way to say, might as well just say rape, really. I mean, sorry, Cryptex, I don't know if you're a monetized channel, but I get sick of trying to bend the rules for YouTube, as if victims don't have a right to say what happened to them out loud. In fact, this girl was raped, and he was charged with a serious crime, and that was a friend of Keegan Kline's. Justice, does that ring a bell at all? And this would have been, I think, around 2020, 2021, but it would have been right before Richard Allen was arrested. And I thought that was awful coincidental that it was the same sort of deal where you have there's a lot of sleepovers going on in Indiana, it seems like to me. And they seem to always involve teenage girls. And things are always happening at these sleepovers. I don't know. Maybe there's someone setting up sleepovers. Maybe we should trace it back. Maybe I'm conspiratorial. Go ahead. Somebody else take the mic, please.
I mean, girls and sleepovers, that's definitely a thing. Like, it's been a thing. It's been a thing for like years and years, but it is definitely something that parents should be very concerned about and aware of who their kids are staying with and stuff. Like almost to the point where you don't let them have sleepovers. Like it's almost to that point.
Fishy, what did you do when you were going to? You would say you're going to sleep over at Janice's house, and then you went over to your boyfriend's house, or you went over somewhere else to party.
I never went over to my boyfriend's house, but one time I tried to tell my mom I was going one place, and I went to another place, and she dropped me off at the first place, and I was walking to the other place, and she pulled up right behind me, and she was like, "Get in the car." I was like, "Oh snap!"
I never did that, but I knew a lot of people that had to do it.
Justice Served Daily says, yes, that's what girls do. I mean, look, me and my friends, we didn't call it sleepovers. We just said, hey, I'm going to stay the night at so-and-so's house. I mean, I stayed at my one buddy's house all summer long in 8th grade. You know, his parents were loaded. I mean, wasted every night. They used to give us money, and the cops were there. It was quite a scene. Anyways, Justice says, yes, that's what the girls do, but many use that yellow Yubo app to stream themselves live. I don't know about that. I mean, I know you've done a lot of, at least at the time, that was something that was pretty, yeah, I don't know. It's a whole different dynamic.
Omegle. It's like Omegle. They can do that now. It's like the same thing. But
oh man, Omegle's nasty.
Yeah, that's not good either. But can you add the bullet though? Is crazy.
Dark web stuff?
No, Omegle, when I was a teenager, it was literally like kids and teenagers that would get on there and do funny shit, and half of it was dudes fondling themselves on the camera. So you just click through and there's random people on cams talking to people. That's all
Hold-
Omega was.
Hold on, Dan, because
Hello.
I like what Fishy was trying to say about the bullet.
Go ahead.
We lost her.
Oh, I think that it is I think that that's very interesting that they didn't put much weight into the bullet. I'm happy that they didn't, because I think that evidence is really like not good evidence. But it is interesting that they didn't take that into consideration. Like, it is interesting to hear what she says are like points that they were actually did look at more and which ones they didn't.
Sarah Carball too.
I don't know. I thought Sarah Carball's story changed. Didn't she say she was going 35, but then when
they
she testified,
disregarded
she was
her
actually going
completely.
65?
Yeah, the jury disregarded her completely.
I don't understand.
But I mean, but answer that question. Didn't she initially say that she was going 35, but she didn't want to get in trouble, and so she was actually going 65?
Wait, guys.
Yeah,
I'm lost. Fishy was talking about the bullet, and Dan is talking about Sarah Corbo.
Oh, I was jumping to that
yeah.
because she said it was interesting what the jury took and didn't take. I was just getting at that they didn't believe in Sarah Carball. They didn't believe in the bullet. Like, I was chaining that together, not trying to go on a tangent.
Okay, I understand now. So how was even possible that Richard Allen was bring to this process? The bullet it was a bullshit evidence. What was the actual evidence to put Richard Allen in that process?
His interrogation.
And again, I think he was involved, but I don't understand.
The only thing I think they had that made sense is his interrogation of him lining up the freaking timeline bit by bit on a map where he parked, when he parked, his car matching the time, the people. Like, that's what I think got him. Not anything else, because there wasn't anything else. And then his confessions, but it didn't seem like she talked about those very much.
Yeah, but the confessions were post arrest, right?
Yeah. What are you asking? What got him arrested?
Yep.
Oh, him saying the gun wasn't his, or wasn't loaned out, or whatever. And he lined up a bunch of the stuff in the interrogation.
Is what got him arrested, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Anyway,
he talked to the cops, Cryptex. That's what he did. That's what got him arrested.
What got him arrested was as we know, was what's her name entering into the Orion system, the Dan Doolin fucking tip that didn't get entered for 6 years.
But that's not even what got him arrested, because he went and got interrogated.
That's not what happened anyways. It's because it said cleared on it. Somebody cleared him first.
Yeah, it said it was cleared. No, nobody cleared him. They wrote cleared on it.
Somebody cleared him. They didn't just write it on there. Somebody obviously did clear him.
I agree with Don't Hate Create. It doesn't matter what you write on something in pencil. Someone cleared
No, it was in the computer, not on the tip.
The ISP released to the Associated Press that to disregard the first sketch, he was no longer a person of interest. Is that not right, Don't Hate?
Right. They did say that.
They did.
Okay.
That's the path that they were going down.
And that was always my point. Since they cleared him, now they were saying they could have been lying to try to catch somebody.
You can think you have somebody cleared too, and they're not actually cleared. But they also never said they cleared anyone publicly either.
No, but they did say to make that person secondary.
Yeah.
Well, that's the same goddamn thing.
That sketch.
But does that sketch represented Richard Allen, in my opinion?
I don't think either one of them looked like him that much.
Well, if any of them did, it was the first older one. Then they switched to a guy with curly, what I perceived to be blonde hair, but what someone testified to was darker brown hair. But by looking at the sketch, to me it was blonde because it wasn't filled in like that. It was still lightly, swiped on there.
From what Teddy said, they asked if it could. They asked at trial if that could have been a hat, and that person, is it Betsy, said yes, it could have been a hat, the hair.
Justice is saying it literally was, though, written on the form, the word cleared, and that's why she found it odd and ended up entering it into the system because no one was supposed to be cleared.
Oh, there you go.
But they did say And before that 2019, or right after that 2019 press conference where they switched it to Young Bridge Guy sketch, of course, they did say to the Associated Press as a press release to
Farmer,
make that
I
first
think
sketch
was trying to say
secondary.
something.
Hey guys, I have to stop the live right now. Sorry for that. It was a pleasure to have you here tonight. Maybe we can do a part 2 to finish with this reaction about the juror interview.
I'm sorry. I babble on a lot, Cryptex. I apologize.
No. And thank you, Fishy.
Okay.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Farmer.
It's fun, Cryptex.
Absolutely.
I hope everything's
I
okay,
enjoyed it.
and thank you for having us on.
Thank you, Cryptex.
And thank you guys in the chat. So
Love all you
safe.
guys. Be easy. Relax. Have a good night.
Bye.